Many people spend their entire lives searching for a magic formula for success, a secret shortcut, or the ultimate algorithm that will transform them into leaders in their fields. They look at charts, market fluctuations, and current trends. But if you could ask one of the greatest investors of all time, Charlie Munger, he would probably laugh at this search for complexity. For Munger, the invisible force behind success is not in what you do, but in how you think. The secret is not to be brilliant, but to avoid being consistently stupid. But before we reveal this mental architecture, I have a challenge for you. If you want to be part of the 1% who truly masters the rules of the game and doesn't just follow the herd, click the subscribe button right now and turn on the notification bell. This channel is your headquarters for the wisdom that schools don't teach. Have you left your like yet? Then let's get into it. What you are about to hear is a deep dive into the mental architecture that allowed a man from Omaha to become Warren Buffett's right-hand man and one of the most respected minds on the planet. To understand Charlie Munger's invisible force, we must first accept that the world is not divided into isolated boxes. Most people make the mistake of over-specializing. The economist only sees economics. The psychologist only sees psychology. The engineer only sees structure. Munger called this the man with a hammer, for whom every problem looks like a nail. Munger's secret was building a latticework of mental models. Imagine a fishing net, where each node is a fundamental concept from a major discipline: mathematics, physics, biology, psychology, history, and philosophy. If you only have one model, you will try to force reality to fit it. But if you have a latticework of models, reality fits naturally. Success, therefore, does not come from knowing a lot about a single thing, but from understanding the big ideas of all things and how they connect. The base of this latticework begins with the mathematics of compound interest. Munger didn't see compound interest just as a financial tool, but as a law of nature. He understood that time is the greatest ally of success. The invisible force here is patience. In the modern world, we are bombarded by the need for immediate results, but the fortune of Berkshire Hathaway was built over decades of waiting. Munger knew that the first rule of compound interest is to never interrupt it unnecessarily. This applies to money, but also to knowledge and relationships. If you learn something new every day in 20 years, the cumulative effect of that knowledge will be overwhelming. The secret is simply not to stop. We are reaching the middle of this content, and I want to take a quick break. If what I said about mental models and compound interest has opened your mind, write here in the comments. I choose wisdom. I read all the comments, and I want to know who here is truly committed. And if you know someone who keeps trying to take shortcuts and ends up hitting their head, share this video now. Knowledge only multiplies when it is shared. Another fundamental pillar is the understanding of human psychology, specifically what Munger called the psychology of human misjudgment. He identified that the human brain, although evolved for survival on the savannah, is full of logical flaws in the modern world. We are prone to confirmation bias, social proof, and the reciprocity tendency. Munger's invisible force was his ability to observe these biases in himself and others. By understanding psychology, Munger was able to stay calm when everyone else was panicking and be cautious when everyone else was euphoric. He didn't play the market game, he played the game of the human mind. This is where one of the most powerful concepts in his arsenal comes in: inversion. While everyone else is trying to figure out how to win, Munger was trying to figure out how not to lose. He often quoted the mathematician Carl Jacobi, who said, "Invert, always invert." If you want to be happy, don't look for what brings happiness. Identify what brings misery, such as addiction, resentment, and unreliability, and avoid those things at all costs. In the business world, this invisible force means focusing on not making fatal mistakes. If you systematically avoid stupidity, success will be a natural consequence. It is much easier not to be stupid than to try to be brilliant. Munger was also a master at identifying what he called the Lollapalooza effect. This happens when 2, 3, or 4 mental models align to push a situation in the same direction. It is a convergence of forces that creates extreme results. Think of a financial bubble. You have social proof, authority, and greed, all acting at the same time. The invisible force behind Munger's success was knowing how to identify when these factors were aligned in his favor. He didn't look for small advantages. He looked for situations where the probability of success was overwhelming due to the convergence of several positive factors. But how did he apply this in practice? Through the circle of competence. Munger and Buffett are famous for saying no to almost everything. They have 3 baskets on their desks: yes, no, and too hard. Most opportunities go into the too hard basket. The invisible force here is focus. Munger knew exactly what he understood, and more importantly, what he didn't understand. The secret is not the size of your circle, but how you define its boundaries. If you stay inside what you know, you will have a huge advantage over those who flirt with the unknown out of pure ego. Furthermore, Munger valued integrity above all else. He understood that reputation takes decades to build and only minutes to destroy. The invisible force of trust simplifies business. When you deal with ethical people, you don't need 100-page contracts. Munger looked for companies that had what he called an economic moat, a competitive advantage that protected the business. But he also looked for moral moats. Strong cultures based on honesty tend to survive crises that destroy companies driven purely by short-term profit. Munger's intellectual discipline was sustained by voracious reading. He said his children saw him as a book with legs. He sought out the eminent dead, the minds of the past who had already solved the problems we face today. The invisible force of reading is that it allows you to acquire the experience of 1,000 lives without having to go through the pain of each one of them. Munger was a collector of other people's mistakes so that he wouldn't have to make them himself. Another crucial aspect was his attitude toward adversity. Munger went through immense personal tragedies, including the loss of a son and the loss of an eye. However, he never allowed himself to fall into self-pity. He considered self-pity a catastrophic mistake that paralyzed the mind. The invisible force of his resilience came from the understanding that the world owes us nothing. Success requires a stoic acceptance of reality as it is. This brutal objectivity is what allowed him to cut losses quickly and double down when the odds were in his favor. Munger also argued that the best way to get what you want is to deserve what you want. In today's world, many seek productivity hacks. Munger believed in ethical work and building real value. If you want success, offer something that improves people's lives. The invisible secret is the law of reciprocity applied to value. The world ends up delivering what you deserve in the long run. To wrap up, the invisible force behind Charlie Munger was his search for elementary, worldly wisdom. He wasn't interested in complex theories that didn't work in practice. He was an absolute pragmatist. The secret to his success wasn't a single discovery, but the constant practice of simple principles. Be curious, be patient, be ethical, understand your limits, and above all, never stop learning. Munger's success is a monument to what happens when a mind decides to operate with the maximum possible rationality, stripping away the layers of ego and emotion. If you've made it this far, you are already different from the majority. Don't leave without leaving your comment on which of Munger's secrets you're going to start applying tomorrow morning. To continue this free mentorship, click on the video appearing on the screen right now about how to invest like the greats. A big hug, and I'll see you at the top.